Thank you for your attention, and sorry to interrupt your lunch, but I hope it's worthwhile here. My name is Lily Whalen. I'm your Community Development Director for the City of Pinole. What that means is that I oversee the building department, planning department, code enforcement, affordable housing, and economic development for the city. It's really nice to see all your faces here today. And we're here today to present workshop number 2 of our series of the Pinole Accessible Living program. And the program is designed to help folks of any ages, but especially seniors, age in place in their homes. And this program is very generously supported by the AARP, and we have some snacks and drinks here that is provided by that funding today. So today, I am very excited to present Keith Marks. Keith is our building official for the City of Pinole. Keith oversees our building division, which has 3 staff members, 2 permit technicians. Let's raise your hands, Connie and Joanna, helping out today. And then we also have a building inspector position. We're currently recruiting for that position right now. The building division last year issued over 700 building permits and conducted over 2,000 inspections of those permits in the year, and with a construction valuation of over $19 million in Pinole. So it's a big job, but we're very lucky to have Keith Marks as our chief building official, and he has almost 45 years of experience in the industry. And he's here today to talk to you about how to make some simple or to larger accessible improvements to your home so you can age in place, and in particular, which improvements need a building permit and which do not. So without further ado, I am happy to bring up Keith here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Keith Marks. I am the chief building official. Just a little bit about me. I am from this area. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, grew up in Richmond. I went to school up at Warren Crespi, so I've been out here for a while. I did business out here as a contractor as well, so I'm really familiar with this area. My wife actually went to Pinole Valley High, so it's just a big circle that we're doing here. As mentioned, I have over 45 years of experience in construction. 23 of those years have been in inspections. In fact, before I came to Pinole, I worked for Contra Costa County, and I did some of the unincorporated areas. So I used to inspect Terra Hills, Mount Talbot Manor, and so forth. So again, very familiar with a lot of the issues that are going around here. Now, the state of California is making a concerted effort to work on what they call aging in place. In other words, they're working on trying to make it easier for, as we age, to be able to stay in our own homes instead of having to move to some facility or care facility. And so they've made some different changes in order to do that, some upgrades. And as the upgrades to the building codes come about, they'll be making more and more changes. So today what we're going to talk about is some of those changes and what's required to make those changes from a legal standpoint. Now, some of these changes do require a building permit. Now, what is a building permit? A building permit is legal permission to do some kind of work. Now, some people think that the codes that go along with those permits are just some arbitrary type situation. Some guys got together and decided, let's just make them do this. But in fact, building permits and the codes are very important. Usually, the codes come about after some kind of incident. For instance, the very first codes in the United States came after a big fire. And there were problems with getting people out. A lot of people lost their lives, a lot of damage to property. And so a set of codes was developed. And then here in the upgrades to those, ICC came about in 1940 with an organized way of having codes. So the codes, the permits are very important. They help you to be able to do things safely, and also in a way that the manufacturer, if there's something you're putting in, the way the manufacturer wants to put those in. Now, not everything requires a building permit. When I say that, you can put in fences and sometimes you can put some decks in without a permit, but things that require a permit are new buildings. Anytime you're building a new building that's under 120 square feet and that's not a tool shed or a playhouse, requires a building permit, and there's a certain way to do that. And anything that's in addition to a building, a home, room additions and so forth, those require permits as well. Again, certain decks, garages, fences over 7 feet high, require a building permit. Pools, swimming pools that are over 5,000 gallons that sit more than 24 inches above the ground require a building permit, and they are required to follow certain standards in that regard. Garage conversions, any kind of electrical upgrade, and when we say electrical upgrades, we're talking about putting in outlets, certain lights, any plumbing system, any repairs do not require a permit. So if you have a leak in your plumbing and you need to fix that, that does not require a building permit. But if you have to change some piping or fixtures, it does. And of course, any replacement of the HVAC system is needing. And that's just some of the things that require a building permit. Now, when you get a building permit, it's for your own safety. Most insurance companies, if there is an incident and some work was done without a permit and it caused the incident, some insurance companies will not allow that. So it's to your benefit to have that protection. So since this is not an inclusive list, how do you know when you need a building permit? Well, the best thing you can do is call our department if you have a question. We have these questions all the time. We also have an email address, buildingquestions@pinole.gov. You can send an email. We can answer any of those questions. So if you're going to, oh, okay, thank you. So if you're going to get a building permit, what is the process? Well, right now, building permits, in order to get a building permit, we do everything online. We have an e-Trackit system. Our e-Trackit system allows you to apply, attach documents, plans, and so forth in there. Once you apply, submit that, then there's another process that goes into place. If there are plans that are attached to the application, then that means that there's going to have to be a review. So the review will take some time. We'll have to process the application. Once we process the application to determine exactly what it is you're going to do, then we will notify you of how much it's going to cost to review the plans, plan check fee. Once that fee is paid, the review is done, then the permit can be issued. Then this is when you pay for your building permit. Usually a process can take anywhere from 5 to 15 days for smaller projects. For bigger projects, it might take a little longer. Could take several months for big projects going back and forth. So it is a process. Once the permit is issued, then work can begin. Once the work begins, the process of having inspections, the key to keep in mind is never cover up anything before it's inspected. So if it's foundation, if you're digging holes and putting in steel, make sure you have an inspection. Before you cover up walls, make sure you have an inspection. Just rule of thumb, before anything is covered up, make sure you have an inspection. Our system allows you to either go online or use a text message system to schedule inspections. And in most instances, you should be able to get a next day inspection up until 3 o'clock that day before. After that, depending on, or if the schedule is more than that will allow, then it'll kick you to the next available day. The way that our department is set up in order for us to be able to complete other processes that we have to do. We're usually closed to the public on Friday. We don't do building inspections on Fridays, but we do business license inspections every other Friday, and that's a little bit different. Now, once the inspections have taken place, there's a final inspection, and depending on what the job is, after the final inspection, we will issue a certificate of occupancy if it's a brand new building or if it's a change of occupancy, which happens on most commercial projects. So that's just kind of a little bit of background about what goes on, how to get a building permit. Now, what we want to talk about now are some of the things that you can do to make your house a little bit more accessible as we age. Now, if you look at this picture, this is what's called an accessible bathroom. Now, what makes this accessible? Well, there's a couple of things. First off, you notice the shower there. There's no curb. So that's what's called a curbless shower. Basically, if someone is in a wheelchair, they'll be able to roll right into the shower and be able to take their shower. And it's also, it's less of a tripping hazard. That little 2-inch curb can be a tripping hazard, and one of the things that we want to make sure of is that nobody actually falls or have a fall when they're in the shower. It's slippery, and it's just a bad tripping hazard. Also, some of the fixtures that are there are easy to handle. You notice in the shower, it's a handheld shower that's at a certain level. That level is low enough for if a person is in a wheelchair, they'll be able to reach that without having to reach too far. Again, easy way of falling if you have to reach. The toilet also, if you look right there where it's pointing, there's a little extender there. As we get a little older, it gets a little hard to stand up. And so the higher up we are, the easier it is to stand up. So there's a little extender there that kind of helps to be able to do that. Also, there looks like there's a grab bar somewhere. I can't see it, but there's also a grab bar in here. Now, this requires a building permit. And the reason why is because the floor now becomes like a complete shower pan. So the whole floor in the bathroom has to be sealed. We need to make sure that it's sealed enough that water won't leak and get into the structure and cause damage. And that pan, as it were, has to go up the wall a few inches as well. I believe it's 6 inches. So we have to make sure that, and also the water has to be able to drain. So that means it has to have a certain slope. That also needs to be checked. The shower, where the handheld shower is, so the plumbing behind that wall needs to be looked at. And also, if that is tile, behind that tile in the shower and up the wall 6 inches, we have to make sure there's a certain type of waterproofing behind that. If water gets behind the tile, it starts to deteriorate the framing underneath, and it can cause major damage. I don't know if any of you are familiar with what we used to call green sheetrock. Well, that was what they used to put behind tile. Found out that the green board is not waterproof, and there was so much damage that was done, mold, mildew, and so forth. They had to change, and that needed to be inspected. So yeah, so the bathroom is one area, and yes, you do need to get a building permit for that. Here's another change that can make life easier for us as we get a little bit older, our closets. Now, this particular setup here, this closet, does not require a building permit. It does not affect the structure, and it just needs to be installed correctly according to this is a kit. But notice some of the things that it does. Notice a person in a wheelchair. It looks like that this person can reach whatever it is they need to reach. Everything is brought to a level where they can reach it. The shoes are low, the hangers are low. And even some of the things that are up at the top, those things are there too. Now, although there's no permit needed for that, we do recommend that you follow the manufacturer's specifications. Make sure that it's connected so that it's attached to framing underneath so it doesn't fall down in case of somebody pulling down on it or even an earthquake or something like that. But yeah, so this is redoing the closet to making it accessible, and yes, there's no permit required for that. Here's another interesting change. Notice the width of the door. Most doors in a regular home are about 32 to 36 inches wide. Notice that one's a little bit wider. That's making the entrance wide. And notice that the threshold down below is sort of level, so this is again to accommodate a wheelchair. If a person's in a wheelchair, they need to be able to get inside. This makes it a lot easier. Then this change does require a building permit because there's going to be a little bit of framing that needs to be looked at. We want to make sure that the door is installed correctly and it doesn't fall down. This is probably one that if you're not familiar with construction, I wouldn't recommend you do this on your own. Get someone that is a contractor or even a friend that used to be in construction, someone that's a little bit more knowledgeable because it's not an easy thing to do. Now, here's another one that this requires a building permit for a few reasons, but this is what we call an exterior chairlift. Notice that there's a set of stairs that if a person for some reason became wheelchair bound, they wouldn't be able to get up to their house. And a lot of times when that happens, they usually have to move. They have to sell their house and move. So here's an alternative. This lift right here will allow a person in a wheelchair, even in a walker, to go inside to get up to the level where the porch is and to be able to get into their house. Now, again, because it is electrical, there is a need for a building permit for this. So this is an exterior design. Also, sometimes there's another device there that may need to be looked at for this lift, but in theory, this is mainly electrical. Here's another one. It's not a really good picture, but in this one, there's this is an interior chairlift. Again, if all the bedrooms are upstairs, then a person would need to be able to get to the second level. So this wheelchair lift here, usually they just plug in. They don't necessarily need a permit because they're just attached to the wall. They should be installed professionally, but there's no building permit there unless there's no electricity. If there's no electricity and they have to run a plug, then they need an electrical permit. But those are getting pretty famous. There are a couple of companies that do these type of things. And then finally, one of the ones that a lot of people do are kitchen remodels to make their kitchens more accessible. Now, there's a few things here. You notice how the bottom cabinets are slanted? That is to allow a wheelchair to get as close as possible at that height. One of the things that happens when a person's in a wheelchair is if the walls or the cabinets are flat, they can only go so far and they can't reach. Also, you notice that all of the countertops, the sink, everything has been lowered. Everything has been lowered to be able to accommodate someone in a wheelchair. So this particular item this change will need a permit. It's a kitchen remodel. The permit will usually, especially for the sink and the kitchen hood, the stove, all those things need to be looked at. Cabinets, If you're just changing cabinets that don't have a sink, usually doesn't require a permit. So if the sink is okay, you just need to change the cabinets, lower the cabinets. And even the upper cabinets are a little bit lower than normal. You see the space at the top. But if you're just changing cabinets and countertops and there's no sink and no stove involved, then that doesn't require a permit. But once you have a sink in there, changing out the cabinets, notice they also have lights at the top and the bottom too. Depending on what kind of lights those are, those two require a permit. So those are just a few of the items. Oh, we got a couple of more, I'm sorry. Now, there's another change that can happen that doesn't require a building permit if it is on a residential property, and that's a ramp. Ramps don't require a building permit. The reason why is because usually the ramps only go up so far, less than 30 inches. So it's more like a deck. And these are not really that hard to do. Most contractors can easily do these. But they're very handy for someone that's in a wheelchair. Remember, we had the stair lifts before. Well, when you have stairs that high, a ramp would be too steep if you had a wheelchair. So on small inclines like this, you can be able to put in a ramp. And again, this does not require a building permit. So that's some of the changes that can help make living at home as we age easier. Sometimes it happens all of a sudden that we can't get into our house. So this kind of thing can be done in advance if we know that eventually we may not be able to get into our house, we might be in a wheelchair. We don't know what could happen. But as we get older, it would be nice to stay in our own homes instead of having to sell and move or move in with relatives and things like that. So again, this is just one of the seminars. We had one a couple of weeks ago. We have a few more coming up. At the end of this month, on the 25th, we have more on doing upgrades to make the home safe and be able to live independently. In October, we have some energy efficiency workshop that we can do, some things that can help us to make our house more energy efficient. And then on the 23rd is a really interesting workshop. It's going to be given by the California State License Board. And that has to do with picking out the right contractor. That's really important because most of these things that need permits, everything that needs a permit can be done by a contractor unless you can do it yourself. But it's important to know who's licensed, how to make sure that they're licensed for your protection. Unlicensed contractors can cost you a lot of money if something happens, if someone gets hurt. So that's a really important one. And then in November, we have a series of workshops that's going to be given by the Contra Costa Fire Department. And that's going to be on making emergency preparedness, escapes, and so forth. So we have a number of things that are coming up. Really appreciated your attention. Are there any questions that you would like answered? Yes. That is an interesting question. We are actually working on something like that. Yes, we're working on doing something to make the permit process easier and maybe even supplemented by the city. So, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I have the mic, right? So the question was, is the city going to be able to help finance some of the permits that are going to be issued, or that need to be issued? And the answer is yes. They will. They're working on that now. I'm sure it's going to be coming up pretty soon, but we are working on that. Any other questions? Yes. So I'm not sure if there's going to be anything like that. There might be some state funding for that, some grants. We might be looking for some things. We do have some programs to help with like upgrades to heating and water heaters and stuff like that. Sometimes we have some things. Actually, I'll let Lily kind of comment on that. Okay, let me repeat the question. Will there be any financial help for any of these upgrades?
And I think the question was specifically with regards to the cost of the project, paying the contractor. Is that right, sir? Yes. So we are working right now on a program for energy efficiency projects to have a list of contractors that are vetted, that people can use, and that have reasonable pricing for these types of projects. So we are working on that program right now. And then the other program that Keith mentioned, we are working on trying to secure grants in order to subsidize fee waivers for building permits for these types of programs. So we haven't received that grant funding yet, but we're continuing to work on securing it.
Oh, I was just saying particularly things like the bathroom remodels or the kitchen remodels. Those things really would make a difference, being able to live in your home or not.
Yes, we've done a few in the city, so they do work. Any other questions? Yes. Hold on, let me bring the mic to you.
Because of fires, I would like to know if they allow wooden decks up against the house, like a deck you would have in your backyard. And do you need a permit to redo your deck, or you can just redo your deck? Because I like wooden decks.
Okay, so the question is, will you be able to keep wooden decks on your house? Yes, you would. Depending on where you live, there are going to be some other restrictions. So if you're in a high fire area, which there are a few of these in the area, you'd have to use a different type of wood. It may have to be treated or Trek or something like that. But in general, no, you can still have a wood deck. Wood fences too. Wood fences, yes. Also, she asked about fences. Yes, you can still have wooden fences. There's no restriction on that. Like I say, there are some changes coming that will affect only the high fire areas, of which there's only a few in Pinole. Most of them are out in the valley, up in the hills. But in general, wood is still acceptable.
Of your backyard to see what you have?
So the comment was that the insurance companies are really trying to force you to use different material. And if that's the case, that's fine, but that doesn't change. The building code doesn't make them do that. That's the insurance companies that if they're making you do that. And I've heard that they're sending drones out. They have people come in taking pictures of your property and so forth. But yeah, the building code doesn't do that for every home. Like I said, there are certain areas that require that. There's certain rural areas that aren't in this area that are very strict. They have to have defensible space around them and everything.
Allow those things to come in and picture our backyard.
I have no control over that. We have no control over that. Yeah, no, you can get into an airplane and take pictures as well. You can't stop that, yeah. But no. Yeah, no, and I don't blame you, but again, we have no control over that.
So we're addressing our homes and property. What about open fields around our homes in Pinole? We can't seem to get anything fire prevention to cut down all the weeds, which would affect our homes eventually if a fire broke out.
Again, that's a different, yeah, well, we just got through with weed abatement, and they try to do their best. I'm sorry. Hold on.
So I think the question was about homes in maybe your neighborhood that haven't been cleared of their weeds, and they might be a fire hazard. We have a code enforcement division, and you can report those concerns to code enforcement. There's 4 different ways. You can call them on the phone, you can email them, we have an online reporting system, or you can come in person and report those concerns.
Property around our house. The open property around our house.
Correct. Yep.
Somebody's yard, but it's like, we can't find out who owns the property. We've talked to the city.
The city does so the animals can move through.
Okay. Let's talk after this workshop.
If, as Lily mentioned, if you call our code or send a case to the code enforcement, they can find out who the property owns it, and they can take care of it there. Do we have any other questions? Okay. The active table. Okay, hold on.
One company came to, I was getting an estimate for one project, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and I looked at the and it was from an incorporated company, and then when we got to adding the contract, he had a different company name that was not incorporated that he claimed was part of the corporation. Could that possibly be true? That it has claimed that it was covered under under the incorporated license?
When it comes to that kind of thing, I'm not sure. We don't regulate that. That's all done by the state. It could have been. I mean, there's always changes, but I really wouldn't know. You'd have to actually, if you run into that, so his question is, they changed the name of the contractor or the company before it was final. If there's a question, always call State License Board. They have all that information if there's a change. I know from time to time it gets scary. Hold on a second.
So as a part of this series, we do have a workshop coming up in October from the State Licensing Board. So that will be on Thursday, October 23rd. So all of these workshops are on Thursdays from noon to 1 here at the Senior Center. So the one on the 23rd will be presented by the State Licensing Board, and they'll be presenting their Scam Stopper for Seniors program. And then the Contra Costa Senior Legal Services will also be here during that presentation and will be able to answer some questions you might have.
I was just getting attention for him.
Oh, okay. That looks like that might be all of your questions. Again, we want to thank you for being here. One thing that if you do have any questions, anything that you might want to know about for a permit, my information is up there. Also, when you leave, my card is on the table. So is the rest of the staff. So with that, we'd like to thank everyone for your attention. Oh, you have another question? Can they access this presentation? They're taping it now, so hold on one second.
So we'll put the slides up on the website. We have a website for this program, so you can access the slides. And then this presentation will be run on PCTV, and we'll also put it on our website as well, the whole series. So if you can't make it to one of the sessions, then you can come back and watch it. Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, and be sure to look out for the next presentation. I believe it's going to be on the 25th. And have a good day.